Hi guys, we're in Edinburgh today and we're going to check out Holyrood Distillery. Come on in. Callum, how's things?
Not bad, how you doing?
Good to see you. All good, yeah. So guys, this is Callum from Holyrood Distillery. Callum's one of the distillers here. He's kindly given us some of his time this morning, so we're going to get a distillery tour and some tips from him on using speciality malt and weird and wonderful yeast, and just generally the mad scientists that you are here in relation to distilling. Guys watching this maybe know about Holyrood. For me, the unique point of difference is that you are pioneering a different way of distillation. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing here.
Yeah, so we're very much proud of the brewing heritage of Edinburgh, and it's something that we like to champion as much as possible, but the main focus for us is to put Edinburgh on the whisky map. Whisky fans will know that it's not really an area of too much prominence on the whisky map, but as I say, the brewing heritage is massive here. So for us, it allows us a really good opportunity, being in the middle of the city, to draw upon that and really champion the beer, but at the same time move forward with whisky being a big staple in Edinburgh. And yeah, absolutely, as a lot of us are former brewers, it gives us a chance to draw upon our favourite recipes, favourite types of specialty malts, and really combine that with classic brewing yeasts, as well as a few more kind of wild and funky varieties as well.
Yeah. So you're making some interesting new make spirit at the minute as well.
Absolutely. For us, it's really important to allow people to take the journey with us that we're having. So we want them to taste our new make as it comes off the stills, which is always what gets us super excited. Is if it tastes great when it comes off, it's only going to taste better when it comes out of a barrel at the end as well. And it's super important for us to let people see our progress and take this journey. You'll see, if you ever look at the labels on our bottles, we have all of the info there, our gravities, our fermentation times. We're about being open and letting all the geeks, the whiskey geeks of the world, come here and really soak it all in, basically. So we're pushing through using maybe one variety of specialty malt and specialty yeast to multiple malts in there, much like a brewing mash bill, or yeast that you normally wouldn't associate with the world of whiskey as well.
So you also make gin here. So gin's made to obviously have an income whilst the whiskey's aging. You're blending rum as well, is that right?
We are. So we are maturing rum in casks, and that is a great way for us to show our stripes in terms of what we can do with maturation. Obviously, being a young distillery, we don't have any single malt that's as of age at the moment, but being able to show people what our new make tastes like and what we can do maturing means that it's hopefully a sneak preview for what's going to be coming in the future. And as far as gin goes, it's a nice one for us to flex our creative muscles. We love the fact that, you know, gin can have all these wild and wonderful ingredients, but for us, we're whiskey makers, and we want to apply a whiskey distiller's mindset to gin. So we limit ourselves to as few ingredients as possible, generally sitting around 3 ingredients that we'll use for most of our gins. But it gives us practice with working in the box that is Scotch whisky, but pushing the boundaries as much as we can. And that's our main ethos here, is respecting the history of Scotch whisky, but also seeing how far we can push it as well.
Callum, for the folks watching, and for the fact that Dylan just asked me to clarify, what is new make?
So new make spirit is essentially the spirit that we produce off of the stills that will then eventually be filled into barrels and mature to become Scotch whisky. So it's baby whisky, if you want to go for a nice little marketing term. But yeah, it's our initial starting point of what will eventually become our single malt releases. Here we are in our shop at the moment, Johnny, in our brand home. So we, as you can see, sell all of our products in here, as well as some of our friends in the industry and distilleries that we like to champion alongside ourselves. But we like to try and have a little bit of something for everyone. So we have our new make available. We have our Height of Arrows range of gins, which has recently increased to 4 different varieties, along with our strong waters, our championing of heritage malts, like Chevalier and Golden Promise, and likewise the kind of experimentation is continuing with things like barrel-aged gin, and as mentioned as well, we have our rum range of the Royal Elizabeth Yard where we're maturing rum as well. So a little bit of something for everyone, and of course, classic gift shop. You can get your glasses and your t-shirts and everything else. We provide tastings for anyone that just wants to wander in off the street, but also people can book with us at holyrood.co.uk, and they can essentially come for a tour, and it can be gin focused, it can be whiskey focused. We really want everyone to enjoy themselves when they're here.
It's all about the experience, yeah. What happens if somebody's watching this and they want to get hold of a bottle or two for themselves? What's the easiest way to get it?
So they can go to our website and purchase it from there, holyrood.distillery.co.uk. We can also purchase our gin through Amazon, as well as many other kind of retailers around, Royal Mile Whiskies and such as well. And then if you want to follow me, we'll head up the stairs and I'll show you the rest of the place.
Lovely.
So the kind of hourglass that we have here is very much for us to show, again, history and time. You know, time is something you have to really think about when you're making whiskey, and it's also because we want to respect the history of the city. So we're lucky that we're in the old engine shed of the Innocent Railway, is the building that the distillery is housed in, and it's important for us, as I say, to tip our hat to that and the area as well. So Arrows tends to come, the name Height of Arrows comes from the fact that Arthur's Seat, which is just behind us here at Holyrood, its original Gaelic name was Ardnasaig, which means height of the arrow.
Okay.
And this comes from, we believe, archery contest that used to get held in Holyrood Park. They would all come and see if they could fire an arrow on top of it, and that was the height of the arrow. So for us, there's the barrier, we're trying to shoot above it, basically, is what we're going for on everything.
I like that.
So this is our welcoming room for the tours that we have, a nice comfy seat for them to sit down and enjoy one of the samples. Generally, we will sample our strong waters, which is our heritage kind of offering of Golden Promise that we have here. And Chevalier are the two examples of this. This is our new make mixed with a GNS to produce a really light, clean spirit, but very much strong in flavour. And we can let people sit in here and talk to them about some of the history of the area, the history of the distillery itself, and also kind of begin to talk about what we're going to be doing in the future as well.
Right, Callum, you had mentioned there that this is a mix of obviously the heritage malts and GNS. So GNS is just a neutral grain spirit. Absolutely,
something that's used normally in the production of gin. You can use that to charge your still, and it's very similar to a vodka in terms of as clean and pure a spirit as you can get. And we add it in to just even out some of the texture of the new make and make it very easy to kind of sip and drink without any mixer. Of course, you can have mixer if you want. I'm a big champion of drink stuff how you like. If you want to put iron brew in it, go crazy. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you want to do so, we're very much about that. But it just softens the edges of the new make and really makes it nice and clean and pure. So we have the map up to show that, again, we're tied into the area, and the strong waters we have there, the name of it is the Charmed Circle, and we've named that after this area that we're in. This famously used to have, we reckon, at least 14 breweries at one point were all in this area of the city, and they all shared the same aquifer to get their water for brewing, and that was known as the Charmed Circle because it was perfect in terms of its chemistry for producing really good beer. So we love the fact that we can sit right in this spot, and we can again, you know, tie ourselves to the great breweries that used to be here before. Okay, so if you follow me in here, this is my favourite room in the distillery, and this is a chance for us to look down at what the guys are doing on the still floor, and this is where you really start to soak up the essence of the place. You get that smell straight away when you come in. You know something's getting made.
It's so warm as well.
This is everyone's favourite room in the winter, not so much in the summer, you know. It can get a little bit sweaty up here sometimes, but for us it's great to look down and see what the guys are doing. So we have our two stills here. On this side we have our wash still, which is 5,000 litres, and this is your initial stage of production post-fermentation. So we'll take our 5,000 litres of wash, we'll charge it into the still, and then we'll heat that up, send it over the top into our condensers here, which will then cool the vapour we've created and send it back to the spirit safe, which you can see on our safe looking down is on the right hand side here. So this is going to take the wash from around 8 to 10% ABV up to around 25-30% in what we call our low wines. Now, probably not going to want to drink any low wines. It's very thick, oily and dirty. Well, this is what we then move over to our spirit still here. So we have a spirit still of about 3,750 litres here, and what we do is charge in our low wines, we heat it up, and again it works exactly the same. Up through the line arm and into the condenser here. We have a extra purifier on the side, which is a great bit of kit for us that we're only really starting to scratch the surface of. But this allows us to really change up the style of the spirit in terms of allowing more reflux to make it more light and delicate, or dialing that back and allowing us to get as heavy and oily as possible, which is my personal favourite of kind of styles of spirit. And then that's going to go down here and come out at anywhere between 75 to kind of 73% at the initial point, and then that's where we can choose to do our cut of the spirit.
A couple of points I want to cover just for people that don't know anything about distilling. Wash, you refer to wash. Wash is the primary fermentation, or the results of primary fermentation, is that fair? So you're taking your grain, extracting the sugars out of it, fermenting that. It would be wort in brewer's terminology, is that fair enough to say?
Absolutely. What the wash is essentially wort if you're coming from a brewing language, but the runoff that comes from our mashing process, once we add our yeast to it, that is then going to be what we refer to as wash. Historically, distillers, especially up north and in the islands, they would actually be given pints of wash to drink every day. So when the guys would retire, they'd actually chap the door and come back looking for a couple of pints of the wash, which you can imagine if you're used to drinking 10% beer every day, you're probably
you pretty
get
used
a bit
sketchy.
Okay, so if you just follow me through here. And then we now have our lab space here. So we've recently refitted this. What we love about this is it's a real space for us to do both the fun side of distilling and the nitty gritty as well. We can really, come up with our plans for the year. We can keep our sample library in here, and we can do our sensory analysis, which is super important for us as well. Quality of product is something that we're really striving not only to keep it as a strong point for us, but to constantly improve. It goes through a rigorous sensory analysis of all of the distilling team, as well as people from across the company, to make sure that if you're, making stuff for the layman's going to like it. It's how I've always prided myself, is think about that guy in the pub who's never drank whiskey in his life. You want to make something that blows his socks off. And that kind of thinking is what really drives this space for us. And you can see our mantra from our lead distiller, Mark Watson there: test, learn, improve, repeat. And that drives everything that we do here. That's our biggest thing for us, is that we constantly want to do new iterations of our recipes so that we come up with a final product that we're going to shout from the rooftops about. And you learn so much more from your failures. We've done plenty that haven't gone the way we wanted, end up tasting kind of contrary to what we hoped, but those are the ones where you actually learn the most, and it really informs what we do.
I can see a load of bottles over here. Are these test samples, or is this for sensory? Just take us through.
So this will be like a little mix of everything. So at the moment we have been doing trials on barrel-aged gins, a new range of them. So that's what you can see here, and you can see the wide range of colours that we've got going on, from a small bit of coloration to deep dark reds coming through. So again, this is really exciting for us to see that. We have our samples of our whiskey, that some of which has become 3 years old, so it's kind of had its birthday, but we're now in the process of working out what ones we like, what ones we need to further work on, and really kind of getting into that stage of things. So that's the phase 2 of Holyrood is really kind of kicking off now. We have them here, a brilliant grading system of an A, a B, a C, and a no. Unfortunately, we do have some no's, but most of them are sitting in the A category, which is great. And then, as you can see, we have our sample libraries in here as well. And the idea is that we can, again, come back when we do sensory and track what we've done, and we can remove and add different parts of our recipes to constantly kind of work and change them. We have our sensory analysis program here, which is run by one of our distillers here, Jane Crosby. And she's really helping us, again, dig down into what we're doing. So it's a chance to taste our spirit, but it's also a chance for us to learn how to taste. But we all have a different level of knowledge. So it's really important for us to get everyone not only passionate, but knowledgeable about what we're doing here. So
the barrel aged gin, just to touch on that, because I can see it there, you mentioned briefly earlier, the turnaround time is much quicker than it is for whiskey. So if someone's a gin distiller or plays with gin distillation at home, what tips would you give them? My tips would be essentially keep an eye on it. We've found that it can mature at a vastly different rate to what you would associate with new make. But for us, this is really the start of it. So I can't give you too much knowledge purely because I don't really know yet. Starting to play yourself.
But we've found that it reacts completely differently within the cask, and of course the flavors are so different to what you're going to get out of new make that your approach of thinking has to be really of the mindset of gin. There's no point in thinking about maturing gin the same as you would do with a whiskey, because it's not going to work. If anyone's ever matured beer in barrels, like you'll know yourself, it's very different to working with new make spirit.
Like we have a project, our brewery, that we've been doing the barrel aged beer. A lot of spontaneous fermentation, wild fermentations, mixed ferms, and it's just patience. It's the best advice I give anyone. You know, don't rush it, take your time. Gin, it interests me that you said that it reacts a little bit quicker. That's something I'd like to look into a bit more myself, you know.
But it's funny because some of them are slow starters, you know, and they sit there and you're getting nothing, and then it can literally be 3 days change, and that's it, the flavor's there. And sometimes you need to get it out real quick, otherwise you end up with just sherry tasting gin essentially, which is great, but you don't want it to remove the fact that it is a gin. So
we can see gin still behind us here. Take us through how that process works.
So we have our gin still here. We're moving away from calling it a gin still towards a pilot still, because our dream for this is to be able to use this for our kind of research and development. We always start off our recipes with this little guy in the corner here. This is the hardest worker in the building, and this is our starting point. It allows us to run small batches of distillations to get the initial idea right, which we can then upscale to the still that we have here. So we charge in about 130 litres of GNS here. We do a 24-hour maceration, so we'll stick it in the night before and let it sit there. But our core principles with our gin is matching the fact that we're whiskey producers and really bringing that mindset into the world of gin. Our range of gins is all based off of the original Height of Arrows, which has juniper berries, Isle of Skye sea salt, and beeswax in it. And the idea behind this was, as much as we want a gin you can enjoy with a tonic, we wanted to create one that you could sip on ice neat in the same way that you would have a dram. And it's been really nice for us to see the feedback in response to that. We have loads of die-hard gin and tonic drinkers that love our gin and love it with a tonic, but so many people that only drink whiskey have come through our building and crossed over and dipped a toe into the gin world.
You mentioned something there, maceration. So maceration is just steeping the botanicals in the spirit, base spirit.
Absolutely,
And do you hot steep, cold steep? What's the?
It's generally a cold steep that we'll do. We can leave it overnight, come in the next day, and we can fire it up and go. For us, we generally have everything in the pot. We've done a few little experiments with lighter, more delicate botanicals in the vapor basket. But for us, generally, it's those three that we work off with slight variations between each of the batches of what we do. And simply a much condensed version of the stills downstairs. We're going to heat this up, let the vapor travel out the top into the condenser at the side here, and we have it running over the parrot beak. My favourite super clear analogy of a still is it's a kettle with a fridge attached.
Yeah.
If you really want to break it down to people, that's the best way to describe it.
So this is your pot still condenser. This is the vapor basket. So can you send it through the vapor basket?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want, instead of going, so it goes through here and then into the condenser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can, we're in the process of putting a bypass so that we can completely bypass the vapor basket if we want.
Yeah.
But we also use this for a lot of contract distillations that we might do as well. So if somebody else is in a tight bind and need their gin made, we'll happily step in and make it for them because we have the tools to do so. I think it's an incredibly versatile distillery we have here, and it's super fun as a distiller to be here because we could be doing something different, not even day to day, but hour to hour we could be doing different recipes with different techniques, and it's super fun to be here. Yeah. And then if you want to head through.
Yeah. Oh, the aroma in here is phenomenal. When you walk in, just straight away you get it. Yeah.
This is it. We want people to really be in the middle of it and absorb it. And you know, if anyone ever comes on a tour, you can see the guys working away. We have Luke in the back there working away, and you'll see us milling around, you know, cleaning, taking samples. You're seeing it as it is. There's no for the tour kind of stuff here. This is really us, and getting our personality across. Things like photos up there for people to see our kind of memories and stuff. We really want this to be Edinburgh's local distillery, and that's the vibe that we're trying to create here.
No, you do feel it, and I can see there's transparency everywhere. There's the mashing schedule, there's the yeast that you have used, there's, you know, different recipes. So look, the guys that are watching this, take them through what these different vessels are doing. So we were obviously looking at part of it from up above earlier, and we're now down on the floor.
So our initial starting point is with the mash tun here. So this is a 1 ton mash tun. We do generally 12 mashes a week here at Holyrood, and the way this is going to work is we have our grist hopper down the bottom with a corkscrew that will bring it up towards the steel smasher here, whilst we also feed in water at the same time. And we have tried a number of different ways of getting the grain in. We've gone with the traditional brewing method of having the rakes going the entire time, or the more classic whiskey method of spreading it off of the top of the arm. And it will depend on the recipe what we want to do. But we will essentially add in the first kind of load of water in there with the grain to get it to a lovely nice consistency and a lovely flat bed. And the classic analogy for the mash tun is it works similar to a cafetiere for coffee, but flipped over on its head essentially. So we build a lovely bed of grain and water, and what happens is the heat and the water is going to allow some of the sugars held within the grain to be drawn out and transferred to one of our fermentation vessels or washbacks. And a great thing about being in a whiskey distillery is quite often what you'll get is a Flying Scotsman, which is a cocktail you can only get in a distillery, but essentially we take the first runnings from the mash, the wort, and we add new make spirit straight off the still there. And perfect for a cold winter's morning, that one, I have to say. So in whiskey we have 3 waterings. We have our first watering, which comes in with the grain, and then for us, once we're about 1,000 litres through our transfer of wort, we'll add second waters to try and get those residual sugars through. And then finally, towards the end of the transfer, we'll add in our third waters. This is a chance for us to extract any that are left hanging around in there. What we generally do with our third waters is we collect it as a return sparge, and we store that in our hot liquor tank, which allows us to then use that for our next first watering. So we've already got those sugars in there, and we can already get that enzymic action going as soon as it starts. So
you're just maximising yield, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's great about whiskey production is there's so many parts of it that constantly recycle back into itself. We have our wort getting pumped across 5,000 litres, and that's going to take us to our washbacks that we have here. So we've got 6 washbacks at Holyrood. They're actually stacked on top of each other, as you can see. And we have a general fermentation time of around 48 hours as our average. But we have experimented with really long fermentations, up to 144 hours, and sometimes going a little bit below that with the average, you know, sometimes it's 42. As long as we're getting a good gravity out of it, we're pretty happy here. So you can get a nice kind of whiff coming through. So for us, this is our black cork recipe at the moment, which is using a number of different specialty malts, such as we've got some chocolate malt in there, we've got a little bit of crystal as well, and a little bit of caramel as well.
Yeah.
So this is really where it all happens in terms of all that R&D you see up the stairs.
Yeah.
This is where we can put it all into practice here, and nothing better than seeing it fizzing away in the washback.
Yeah. There's a lot of pioneering stuff here that maybe we aren't giving it justice to. So you can see on the wall here how you build mash bills. You know, if we take this just for a second, right? Usually in whiskey distillation, it's, you know, single malt.
Yeah, it's peated or it's unpeated.
Yeah.
Those are the two you generally tend to work with.
And you're doing a totally different approach where you're using, you know, your experience in brewing with designing beer recipes and throwing in roasted malts, specialty malts.
Yeah.
What's the rationale for that?
So for us, again, it's twofold. Firstly, flavour. We want it to taste great.
Yeah.
And we want to then secondly draw upon the brewing history of Edinburgh, as I've touched on. And our way to do this is to simulate brewing mash bills within our whiskey process. And it's very freeing as a distiller to be given essentially carte blanche in terms of our raw materials, to all in the pursuit of a great flavour that we can then continue when we get to maturation. So for us, it's generally our starting point is we'll find a beer that we like, you know, be it a historical beer that's been around for ages or is maybe not around anymore, or it could be a fresh fruity IPA that we've tried at the weekend and we all really enjoyed. We love digging down into the individual components of those recipes and what makes them, and we then build it from there. So myself, I'm a huge fan of red beers, so any chance to use crystal malt in there, I'm happy. You know, we're never going to get the colour in our final product, so that's the part you lose, but those lovely toffee, caramel flavours are always going to carry through into the final product.
And obviously it's Scotch whisky distillation, Irish whisky distillation, there's regulations to be followed. This is all within the guidelines. Absolutely.
We are really like working within what Scotch is, because to us it's super important that we retain what Scotch is, what makes it unique, but at the same time, you know, it's a really nice challenge as a distiller to have a box to work in and just push against the edges of it as much as we can and really explore what we can do with very little. And for us, we don't have to be limited to a single malt. We can use all of these different kinds. Operationally, we tend to kind of put a little bit of a lid on the specialty stuff purely because it can take us quite a long time to get it out of the mash tun sometimes. You know, been out there in the rain for an hour and a half longer than we normally are because we've had a chocolate heavy one. But the trade-off is amazing flavours that usually you would have to rely on a particular type of barrel to get, or perhaps you can't achieve in whiskey. And for us, the realms of things like chocolate malt, black malt, brown malt, all the flavours that you get from them, you know, deep coffee tones, hazelnut flavours, all these things that are well versed in the beer world but you don't really see in whiskey. It's great for us to kind of usher the change from brewing principles into whiskey and kind of act as a little bit of a bridge.
What's your favourite in terms of specialty malts? Roasted or crystals or kilned or?
So for myself, as I say, I'm a big fan of kind of crystal stuff, but for me the surprising one that we found was the brown malt. That combined with a little bit of chocolate, and all of a sudden, like I say, you've got a little bit of hazelnut, a little bit of chocolate. We had one that I would describe as a Kinder Bueno coming over the top.
Sounds good.
And it's just phenomenal. But a great part as well is using heritage malts. So we've been really interested in malts that maybe were prominent in whiskey before but are now not so well used. So that's why we use the Chevalier and the Golden Promise that are kind of historical ones. But alongside that, Maris Otter and Plumage Archer, which both have really unique characteristics. Plumage Archer in particularly really juicy, really fruity spirit, and Maris Otter super biscuity. You know, you're eating a packet of Hobnobs the minute you taste that. You know, that's what's coming through. And having a wide range of toys to play with just means that we can not only have fun with it, but really critically think about how we're building our final product.
Yeah.
And as I say, we don't want to just be making spirit that we then fix in post, if you will, with barrels. We want it to be great when it's wort, great when it's wash, amazing when it's new make spirit, and phenomenal when it's whiskey. And that's really what drives us.
Yeah, there's so many options nowadays with specialty malts. Like, it's enormous.
Yeah.
And you can see you're using, you know, a blend, and exciting things that you're doing here.
And then the combo of that with any kind of peated malt as well.
Yeah.
You know, again, it just expands out what we can do, because, you know, if we want to have maybe some sweetness from a caramel in there with peated smoke, all of a sudden you've got a sweet barbecue kind of flavor coming through, and it's just you can see why we get so excited. You know, because
like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for distillers.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not just crazy. There's a lot of scientific thinking that goes with it, and keeping both of those balanced is really like our job as a company, to make sure that we're not just going crazy. At the same time, we're doing research that we can draw upon for years and years to come, so that when we're no longer with Holyrood, it can continue to be the thing that it is today. Okay, and then finally we have our stills here. So this is, of course, what we were looking down on from above, and this is really the kind of crux of it. My favorite part is just seeing it bubbling away in the still there.
So there's aggressive boil ongoing at the minute when you look through the manhole cover here. This is low wines?
Yeah, so this is towards the end of our wash distillation. So this will be, I imagine, getting now down towards about 8%.
Okay.
So not very much left. You can see the strong rolling boil going there. And as I say, this gives us a kind of dirty, oily spirit. This is what we then purify and clarify in our spirit still. The unique character of our stills is, you'll notice, they're very tall. And what this does is it allows us loads of reflux to get a nice kind of delicate flavour. But at the same time, the way we counteract that is we run our stills quite hot. If you've been to distilleries before, you usually don't see it firing out of the spout quite as quickly as that.
No, nowhere near as quick,
And that's a conscious choice. We, as a team, really like oily, heavy spirits. We can't achieve that through a slow distillation on tall stills like this, purely because this is what we could fit in the building. So our way to counteract that is we can run it hot, run it hard, and we can get that bit of dirty character in there. But likewise, a bit of a Swiss Army knife, we can dial it right back and let these tall stills do the work and end up with super delicate, fruity spirit. So again, it's having all these options for us. And then the plan is essentially we can start to build towards what our sort of in-house style is, but at the same time, we can always have extraneous projects going to keep us interested and keep us fun. We're going to head down, have a little look at the belly of the beast, what people normally don't see, and see where the real kind of action of the distillery happens. So if you want to follow me, this is where all the action happens. The guys currently are drafting out, so our grain is getting pumped out of our Pondorf system along a steel pipe at the back there.
So there's grain coming out here?
Grain at high speed getting fired out. This is our kind of critical control point. If this goes wrong, we're in a lot of bother, but thankfully we're quite good at bodging a good fix here. We're kind of, everyone's a bit
I can see a couple of DIY repairs there.
MacGyver is our hero in this place. Give us a couple of things and we'll make it happen. But this is where we do our mashing as well. You can see.
So this is the hopper where the mash goes in.
So in there you can see we have the screw that goes up and then follows into the next one. And takes us up to the mash tun there. All of our bags here, they come crushed and milled for us. So essentially it's just us ripping the bags open and pouring them in. It's a nice manual one, you know. It's, as much as we'd love a silo, it's not really going to happen.
Right, take us through then. These are the wash backs, are they?
Yeah, so this is the bottom of them here. So you can see we had 1, 2 and 3 at the top, and we have 6, 5 and 4 at the bottom here. So we don't have a window for these obviously, so we're at the mercy of the sample taps that we have here. And all of our wort comes through this line here. So we can essentially isolate each of these and pitch the yeast in line with it, and then essentially send it wherever we want it to go. And then alongside further we have our ISR here, which is going to be where we keep all of our spirits. So that's intermediate spirit receiver for anyone that doesn't know ISR. And we're going to fill from our receiver here into IBCs, which we then send to our warehouse, which is out at the Kirkliston near the airport.
Yeah.
And where we can fill and keep all of our barrels here. We would love to have our maturation on site, but when you see the size of the site, we've done very well to squeeze what we can into this building. So we're just looking at kind of anything we can to keep it here, but unfortunately all those barrels have got to live somewhere, and it's outside of the city.
Are these moved by like an armed guard, like a secure core type van?
Yeah, we're all EMCS documentation to the gills, and we have a Dita comes in, she picks it up and takes it away out to the guys there. So you can see out there the drafting out of the grain. So Jane there's filling one of the boxes to be sent away, sent to the farmer. And we work with a dairy farmer, so he'll use it for cattle feed.
Sustainable.
That's it. It's like I say, we want to reuse as much as we possibly can. One final thing to show you, I'll take you to our barrel room upstairs. So these have been used by us, but for the meantime they're just empty. We are looking at getting some stuff put in them for the tours when they come round, but in the meantime we just like to have them for a way to people to kind of get a sniff of the inside of the barrel and start to understand some of the character you're going to get from them. So we have our Oloroso sherry casks here. This was used in our 2021 cask program. So again, if you kind of pop this guy open, you have a little whiff.
So the reason you can't have these full is obviously revenue. You can't have people walking in and dipping in.
And it's also just, you know, it's going to be sitting aging away here, and you know, we would then not be able to bottle it and stuff. So you see the flavours that are in these, and then it carries on. So we have our Ruby port cask here as well. So this was used in some of our aged new make series that we released, and again, great smells coming off of this one.
Wow, that's lovely. Really nice.
And then my absolute favourite, any excuse to walk past this barrel, I'll take it, even if I have to go the long way around the building. But this is one of the casks that we've used for maturing our rum kind of label. So this is the Guyana Distillery.
Wow.
Diamond stuff here. So this is just amazing. If I could get that in an aftershave, I probably would, you know.
Yeah, I probably would as well, actually. Dylan, you do want to check that out. That's lovely. What about char? How do you approach that? And do you play with different chars in the barrels?
So our head of spirit operations, Mark Watson, his real sort of passion is maturation. So he's very much into getting not just classic types of barrels, but weird and wonderful ones that we can get a hand on, and different types of char as well. So either we can go for first fill, kind of second fills, bourbon barrels and things, or we can go for fresh virgin oak as well. We're really much in the same way that we're approaching the yeast and approaching the malt in terms of getting as many varieties as we can. We want to do the same with barrels as well. So again, the joys of us having the Royal Elizabeth Yard label in terms of maturing rum means that we get that nice cross-pollination. So get lovely rum casks, we get amazing kind of port and sherry, but we can also go for classic, you know, American bourbon barrels.
No, it's incredible. I'm surprised you aren't shouting about this more. You know, or maybe you are shouting about it and nobody's listening. You know, that's so listen. It's been such a pleasure to see, and the experimentation, innovation going on here is phenomenal. You know, so I'm excited to see what the spirits taste like.
We're glad to have you, and like you say, we'll shout to anyone. You know, neighbours, folk in the street, somebody at the pub. We all talk about it constantly because we're really excited about what we do, and we want people to kind of get that same buzz about it.
I know you've been working very closely with Crisp Malt on the speciality and heritage malt side of things. There's a young lady is doing a PhD on this topic. How's that coming along?
Amazing. That's been phenomenal for us. So when we were lucky enough to have Rutel come in and do her PhD with us as part of that, we did 18 mashes, and we used a variety of different malts in that. Things like Munich malts, different types of crystal, chocolate, and the info that she's passed on to us in this collaboration that we've had with her and with Crisp has been so important for us to work out things like how we use the malt in terms of our cut points. You know, we can basically vary our cut point depending on the malts that we use in order to extract the different flavors.
Yeah.
And these findings have all come from that PhD and the work that we've done with Rattel and with Crisp as well. So that's been great for us. And it means that, you know, we're not flying blind with a lot of these things. We have the research to back up the tall talk that we have, if you will. And it's great to be able to show people our working. As I said before, it's why we put stuff on boards, why we put it on the bottle. Is the alcohol industry should be a collaborative thing, because so many parts of it rely on other aspects of the industry. You look at just the way we have the transatlantic exchange between barrels. That starting point, you know, again, the European side of things, the way barrels are exchanged, and it's supposed to be a collaborative thing, and it's really important for us to show everyone what we're doing and absorb as much of that as possible. And the work with Rattel was great in terms of we got to see how the malts really worked by themselves. You know, there was no extraneous kind of variables in there. There's all the same yeast, all the same mashing parameters, and we really got to see how these malts stood proud. It also allowed us to see how they would mix together, because that's the hard part. You know, you get some really great flavors, but the danger is that they fight against each other. They're shouting over each other, whereas much in the same way when you're blending and when you're maturing, you want stuff to marry together and fold into each other really nicely. Kind of like a band, you know what I mean? You use the term note when you're talking about flavor. You know, you need something like a chocolate malt. It's like your strong base, your baseline at the bottom that's kind of anchoring things. You have your, you know, screaming lead guitarist that's something a bit more wild, like a strong caramel or something like that. And then you've got your kind of stalwart, you know, distilling malt that's, you know, keeping the rhythm in the background, keeping the drums going. And that kind of idea is like really what using all these malts is about, is championing them, showing their strengths, showing these great flavors, but also making sure that when they go together, it works and it's not just a cacophony of kind of noise and flavor, you know? Should we go and try some?
Are we allowed to try some?
Yeah, absolutely. Follow me. So of course this is a little bit strong, so if you want to add a little bit of water, feel free. But all those flavors come through in this, and it's really like the greatest hits of some of the thinking that we've had.
Very strong there, Johnny.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Like I said, water is the key. I forget that, you know, I get too used to drinking it off the still sometimes, but super creamy.
It worries me how much I like it at 60.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
You find that with a lot of our stuff. It's dangerously easy to drink, is how I describe a lot of it.
It's so smooth for 60%, like silky smooth. There is layers of flavour in that for a new make. So for me, the complexity's there in it already, you know, so like I think it's exciting what you're doing. I also don't understand why people aren't doing this, and that's part of why we're here, is to get that message out there and hope, you know, like obviously give you guys the credit for pioneering it, give Crisp the credit obviously for making great malt, and they've obviously put a lot of investment into this with the PhD studies and the investments in the plant and the specialty malts that are coming through, but there's exciting opportunity out there for distillers, so like get in touch with us or Crisp and let's see what we can achieve.
Absolutely.
So guys, that was Holyrood Distillery. What an incredible experience. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Check them out, buy some of their spirit, let us know what you think of the video. Hit the little like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we release new content, and until next time, happy brewing.